All right, all right. Quarterback School live. Do it right, do it light. A little Tuesday, midday out here on the West Coast. Fired up. Talk some ball. We got the draft around the corner. We got some NBA playoffs, play-ins. Not sure how much we're going to talk about that, but we could, potentially. Got some baseball out here. You're welcome. Fired up, though, to see some familiar faces already coming into the chat. Nate, Chase, Alex, Thomas, appreciate the kind words. As always, actually, should probably get a good story about this. As always, there's never a better time to get your questions in than early on a chat. So I appreciate everybody coming in that notifications crew, locked in, and get them going. Tom, first question of the day. Are you still a Chargers fan? I don't know if I was ever necessarily a Chargers fan. Certainly a fan when I was playing for them for a couple weeks. But no, I probably grew up closer to being a 49er fan. I used to go to their training camps all the time in Rockland. Hot AF out there in August. Holy moly. July and August. Wow. Yeah, so never really a Chargers fan. I don't think... I guess I would say maybe 50-50 in San Diego. People still Chargers fans. My friends probably more anti, a little bit more vocal than most maybe. Slim West 41, what's good? Appreciate it. Griffin, are you a Bruins fan like hockey? No, Alex. Appreciate everybody checking in. KB, it's a big deal. Size for sure. Griffin, I see a longer question. Let me get it going here. Hey JT, when you played quarterback or even coached high school ball, how did you know or teach when to throw hot? Did you always throw hot if the Sam blitzer or if the Mike or Sam blitzes? No. So Griffin, I would tell you to get over to the quarterback school pass pro course. It is pass protection centric, obviously, but it's through the lens of the quarterback. So it will teach that kind of how to throw hot. There's a lot of different ways to go about it. The system that we used when I was coaching high school football, we threw hot occasionally. The hots were probably more in the 5-person protection situation. If we did 6-person protection or play action, we usually had capacities to kind of full slide and pick it up. We were also a crazy up-tempo team, so a little bit harder to get hot or get a lot of pressure against teams like that. But when I was playing, it's all based on the protection. So what protection it is dictates where the hots are. What concept it is dictates where the hots are. And so it's way, way too complicated for me to say you do it this way, you do it that way. Every offense is different. But I think most universal ways to best understand it is to start pass protection, then work concept and being able to understand where the hots are. So hope that helps. Shane Paul talking about English majors. It wasn't the easiest in the world. I enjoy reading. Had a couple friends that were in the English pipeline. Basically, I didn't want I couldn't handle college math at the time. So little did I know that I'd have to go back to grad school and do it regardless. But at the time, I wanted to stay away from the math. So there were a few different options. And I actually remember sitting down with my college head coach, telling him, because I needed to make a decision after like 2 years, what major I was going to do. And I think I said communications or something. And this is no offense to communication majors out there. My wife has got some communication in her kind of undergrad stuff. He would basically said, don't do communications. They're a dime a dozen. Do English. You can teach. You can write. All those types of things. That how you write is how you think. All those types of things that I enjoyed. It wasn't necessarily the easiest track, but it wasn't, chemistry either. Appreciate it. My man Darren checking in. Damien, the sub membership on here, the YouTube thing, really is just like a badge to say that you support the channel, and that when we're in these lives, I'm usually better at picking out the people who are members to make sure that I try to get their questions. The one on Patreon is a little bit more, I guess it doesn't matter money-wise. If it doesn't matter money-wise, You get more content, certainly. You don't get any extra content necessarily over here for being a YouTube member. It's just a way to get that badge identification. And the badge changes color, so I can really tell the people who have been around for a long time because they'll have different color badges. So little different ways to support the channel. I certainly appreciate both ways to support the channel. I just don't really promote this one. It's more of just kind of like in the live type thing. And to be honest with you, I'm not a YouTube member for other people, so I really don't know how else it works. I think you get like weird emojis that I have to make or something. What else we got here? My man Darren. JT, would there be a set number of plays you would feel comfortable calling for quarterback runs, or does it depend on the game? Oh, that's a good call. I think it depends on the game and the team. You know, if you feel confident in your backup, like the last year I was coaching high school football, our third year, we had a really competent backup quarterback who actually was probably a better runner, and I used to throw him in the game to run him. So there I was comfortable with running either guys. If you don't have a competent backup, it's certainly not as cool to do that. I think in big championship games, it doesn't matter. You're going to run them regardless. I think how you run them matters too. You know, inside the tackles, on the edge, you know, tight, you know, short yardage, third down, fourth down, tight red zone. Those things to me come up where you're going to want to run them. Do I want to run them like on a 2nd and 15, you know, with 20 seconds left to go in the half? No. KB, you're really interested in the height thing and the size thing. I mean, I think the game has changed to become a little bit more horizontal and a little bit more spread out. So I think shorter quarterbacks have a little bit easier of a transition nowadays than maybe a long time ago when it was more pocket centric. But yeah, it certainly would help to be taller, but I don't think it's as much of a deal breaker as it was back in the day. Nate Taylor, what's up, bro? Who's the strongest arm during your time in the league? Oh, man. That's a good question. I would say, put it this way. I would say the strongest arm I ever saw consistently would be Favre. One of the guys that I remember playing catch with, and I didn't do it a lot because I was only there for like an offseason and training camp, was with Aaron Rodgers. I remember catching the ball from Aaron thinking, this ball spins like the revolutions, like I was catching the laces. I was like, this ball spins more than any other ball I've ever been around. So that was just like a weird feeling. I think the strongest arm that I ever heard about was actually, God, what was the guy's name? Michael Bishop, Kansas State. I never saw him throw, but in the CFL at one of the stadiums, what stadium is it? Edmonton, maybe? They have this huge, maybe Calgary, I don't know, one of those. They have this huge scoreboard, like dangling from the middle, not scoreboard, like score thing, like big video thing in the center of the field. And I swear to God, that thing is, I don't know how tall it is, but it's at least, I'm generous saying it's 70 yards up. It's a lot. Maybe that's an exaggeration. It's a lot. And for fun, I would be out there pregame trying to throw it and hit it, and I was missing it by 20 yards. Like straight up, got no chance to hit it. And one of the kind of the legend or the lore in that league was that only one person had ever hit it, and it was Michael Bishop. And I could imagine that if you hit that thing, that would be the craziest thing I'd ever seen. My man Joe, ba-boom. 200K right around the corner. Appreciate you, dog. Yeah, we'll see. It's coming eventually. Who knows when? We'll see. I'm trying to think, like there are definitely dips and lulls in this stuff for me, and this is kind of that as the draft gets closer, it will ramp up. Post-draft is a little bit hot, and then certainly kind of that early summer. I feel like the lull in the league is kind of June, July, but then we're back to football season, y'all. It's right around the corner. August will be here before you know it, and we're into it. There's a lot of good questions in here. There's no way I'm going to be able to get to all of them, so I apologize. If I don't get to them, it's not because I intentionally didn't get to it. It's just there's too many in here right now for me to be able to get to before it leaves my screen. What did I see on here? There was one that I saw. Oh, the Carson thing. Thomas, what do you think about Carson saying Burrow over Mahomes? I mean, I I don't agree with it. It wouldn't be the first time that I haven't agreed with Carson. That's no shot at Carson. That's just the truth. Carson's a great dude. I didn't really dig into like the meat of why he said that. I don't think that there's probably I think Burrow is very good. I think Burrow is probably a top 3, top 5 for sure quarterback in the league. I mean, you're essentially splitting, Adams here when you get to the top. Or splitting hairs, I should say. I just don't think anybody comes close to Mahomes. So like, the argument for a while that it was Josh Allen, now it's potentially Burrow. I just think Mahomes has essentially separated himself from the rest of the league, especially when it matters most. It feels like he's, just the consistency that he's been able to play at in such a short amount of time. It's pretty wild. And Burrow just hasn't done that. So I'm not saying he can't, but he just hasn't. And I think Burrow is probably, yeah. I don't know who Mahomes works out with in the offseason. I'm sure he's got some quarterback guru. I think Burrow does. Is definitely with Carson's brother Jordan. So there's probably a comfort level that he knows Burrow's game a little bit better. Certainly knows the Cincinnati situation. I think it's really, I'll be honest with you, I think it's remarkable that Burrow has had the success that he's had for that organization. That organization, in my opinion, is one of the hardest places to win ever, let alone consistently in the league, for a lot of different reasons. Sam H., let me know if you see any Michael Bishop highlights. I just remember a cannon of an arm and running like the option at K-State. I don't know if I think he played in the league for New England, maybe, if I can remember correctly. Coach Seiya, favorite cover 2 beater. Check down. Screen. I'm probably just like a deep in, if I'm being honest. If we're really like at a high levels of ball, just run like a dagger, run that corner off, and then wrap that in there. Nice little cover 2 beater. But I'm probably, if I'm seeing cover 2, I'm just check down. So probably the first thing I'm thinking of. Run the ball. Yeah, run the ball would be the other option. That would be the play caller in me saying run the ball. Michael, what's good? Ba-boom. What was I going to say here? Oh, Michael, why do you think so many people are so obsessed with mock drafts? I was laughing because I literally just saw some dumbass comment about some PFF mock draft, and I was like, I didn't have the energy or bandwidth to read it, but I was laughing. Why do you think so many people love mock drafts when usually many, if not most teams trade up or trade down right before the draft and render their predictions useless? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why mock drafts resonate so much with people. I think it's just because they're intuitively easy to follow. I think the mock drafts that and then you get a mock draft that inserts a trade, I don't know, whatever. Let's just hypothetically, Raiders trade up to the 3rd pick. Well, then you're right. It totally does jack the rest of the draft. I think that there's certainly some ego in it for a lot of people to say, hey, I got X percentage of the first round right, or I got, some validation to your process. I personally think it's it's just a lot of luck. My stuff that I do is not mocky, but even the list that I make is so incomplete because I don't watch everybody. I don't watch every game. I don't watch, I'm not having to fit a system, but I will tell you that I got a little nervous this year because I've seen the order that I did it come out recently as a lot of people's order, and that doesn't make me feel good. I don't know why. Shane Paul, it's just like sparkling water. It's not that great. I'm not that crazy, dog. Not today, at least. Oh, Wavy Ream. JT, what was the hardest defense you played against in your career? I think that says career. Hardest defense. I think I've told elements of this story before, but I would say when I first got into the league, I really, really disliked the Pittsburgh Steelers, odd pressure stuff, zone pressure, Tampa 2, 2 trap stuff. But then I played for a couple odd teams. So when you run the scout team, you're running against that first team defense all the time. and I just got more used to the odd front. I think I really, really disliked the odd front, and coming out and last couple of years in college, it got a little bit popular on our schedule. So I just didn't like the extra guy standing up. I felt like it changes some rules and a lot of protections, and so the odd gave me some issues, and then some zone pressure into trap, meaning corner rolled up, half safety over the top. I didn't love because a lot of my like natural hot throws I felt like were in the flat. So just learning how to play a vertical hot was probably the most difficult. But then the hardest defense to play against, and this is probably one that people don't necessarily love to talk about, but it happens more often than people understand, is when their dudes are just better than your dudes, like, and they just play man coverage and put up 2 middle fingers and say, you're not getting off the rock, or your guy, like your number one, is not as good as our number one corner, and our number one corner is going to go put you on an island like Revis back at his heyday. There's nothing you can do. And so that feeling of like helplessness, and it's not totally helpless, like you can motion, move them off the line of scrimmage, move them around, move them in the backfield, those types of things that I think are a little bit more common today. Back in the day when I was playing and the league was a little bit more maybe static and stationary, it was a little bit harder to do. So those were probably the ones for me. I see a little wing T action in there. Let me thoughts on that. Hey JT, is the wing T they run series-based offense with a base play, constraints off that, trap, buck, waggle? Is there a thought process with the passing game, a base pass with constraints? Bro, I have no idea. I don't know anything about the wing T passing game other than the things that you mentioned right there, waggle. I did spend some time a couple years ago when I was really digging into the run game and just coaching and teaching different elements beyond kind of what I was comfortable with the wing T run game and like how they number their plays and how they kind of formation and call their plays. It felt limited to me, meaning that one of the things that I like about what I consider a robust system and structure is that it's super flexible and adaptive and can be built upon and constrained, where I felt like the wing T stuff was just so rigid. This is how it is. This is how we've done it. This is how you number it. This is how you call it. This is the formation. Like, that's not for me. Shane Paul. Teddy is funny. I like it, dog. Coming right into the chat with it, Teddy. What was I going to say? Oh, Shane. Thoughts on motion in the run game. How much is too much? Yeah, that's a tough one for me. I've gone kind of both ends of the spectrum, from really liking a static, clean image, playing quarterback, to calling plays in that same world, to going to the far side of being super shift motion dominant. And I think that there's probably a place in the middle. I think it's in the best interest of a comprehensive offense to have the capacity to motion any player anywhere. So if you're in an offense that doesn't have the capacity to do that, I probably think you're leaving rounds in your clip. Not a great analogy, but makes sense. You want to be able to make sure that you've got the capacity to do everything you want to do planning wise. So I think there isn't a space for it. It doesn't mean that you carry it in every game. I personally like plays and motions that you're motioning for a reason, not necessarily just because you can. I think that there's sometimes a fine line with what that looks like. I'm also a big believer in making sure that if you are going to be a quote unquote like motiony team, that you're doing it all the time. I found playing and coaching against people and even calling plays myself, it's easy to motion a lot when you're on a script, right? Because everything's already predetermined. It's a lot harder when you're in the flow of the game and you're calling plays. Maybe you're calling plays from your head. Like when I was calling plays, we'd have a game plan, but I'm signaling as we're calling plays. So, I'm not necessarily like staring at it, like reading it, like you would read into an NFL headset where you can already have all those motions baked into the process. So I just had to be really intentional about making sure that I'm doing it all the time. So for me, it was kind of by default. If you go back probably ask guys that I coached against, they would say I was probably a little bit more motion shift heavy early in a series because I had all those plays already predetermined going into the game. And then as you gain a first down, as you get a big play and you just go tempo-wise, I think it's a little bit harder. You have to be a little bit more intentional with it. I also think you can overload certain quarterbacks where it causes more issues than it helps, especially on passing plays where you're trying to gain maybe some motion information. And, if a guy's just scrambling, swimming like he can't complete a hitch, well, then it doesn't matter if we if we shift motion to get coverage information, he's going to tuck it and run, so it doesn't matter what the coverage is. So I think you can overdo it at lower levels of ball for sure. Darren, I'm not going to answer that question. I appreciate it. Oh, Joe, I know, man. I wish one of the few reasons, no knock on Sacramento, but I grew up in Sacramento, like middle school, high school, college too, and the Kings were the show, and the Lakers just used to break our hearts every year in the early 2000s. And it's fun to see the Kings back on the map. I've only been to the new arena a few times, but yeah, I feel like people are sleeping on the Kings. Like, don't they have the best offense, maybe this season or ever? And yeah, they're going up against the Warriors, but I don't know. I honestly haven't watched them play that much, but I'm excited to see them. I personally really, really enjoy the NBA playoffs. I watch a little bit of NBA basketball over the course of the year. Not necessarily a diehard guy for any team, but I do enjoy watching NBA basketball, certainly more than college basketball. And so I'm excited for the playoffs. The playoffs go forever, though, man. Holy moly, they go forever. Backyard Brewers, I've seen you ask the Jordan Love thing a few times. I don't really love the comp thing. I don't know who he compares to. My opinion on Jordan Love hasn't changed at all. I think my opinion is exactly what it was the last time I showed the film. I think he's shown some really nice flashes. It'll be fascinating to see what he looks like. And, God, I could only imagine if the Packers get 3 Hall of Famers in a row, that'd be pretty crazy. Shockingly crazy. So even if they could get like a Jeff Garcia type performance, that's what I think of as like the guy who followed the 2 Hall of Famers for the Niners. That'd be pretty nice, I would say. I think Jeff had a pretty sweet career, a lot of Pro Bowls. Man, espresso locked in here. Do me a favor, as you come in, I got 75 of our closest friends in here. Hit that like button for me. Make these lives things as much as possible, kind of a weekly-ish staple for the show. I enjoy doing them. It's kind of nice for me early in the week to come in here, talk a little bit of ball, see what everybody wants to talk about. My man Rotten Oxford, how hard is the transition from playing primary from shotgun to playing primary from under center? I think it's usually the opposite. Maybe not. Maybe guys who are coming into the league nowadays are going from gun to under center a little bit more. I think that there is a transition. I don't think either of them are probably as hard as people want them to be or think that they are. I personally think it's easier to play under center. And what I mean by that is you obviously have to be able to get the snap, and sometimes that can be a challenge, especially at lower levels of ball. But if you can get the snap and you've got a center that you're feeling comfortable with, the reason that I like under center is because you can keep your eyes on the defense, right? So if you're taking a snap, your eyes, you can look at the defense the entire time. If you think there's pressure coming over here, you just look over there the whole time. If you're in shotgun and you think that there's pressure, you've got to eventually look down to catch the ball. So when you take your eyes off of it, you got to come back up, and it complicates the process. Now, is it easier to throw from gun? Hell yeah, you're just back there. And some offenses are super, lax as far as catch, shuffle, catch, stand there. Some offenses, I've seen guys at lower levels of ball like stand 7 yards deep, catching like a mini long snap, just catch and chill. You don't really do that in the league. I think it's not, once you get comfortable under center, if you're not used to doing it, I think you can see the value of it. I also love it just for play action elements of it. I think are significantly better. Yeah, Joe, appreciate it. I mean, Jeff Garcia was a baller. He probably still ball. That dude is jacked probably. I watched Jeff Garcia. They came when I was in New Orleans, and I think he was with San Francisco. Maybe he was with Cleveland. And he put on a clinic, man. He was surgical in the underneath intermediate stuff. I think he might have, I don't know if T.O. was there. either way, I thought he was surgical because they were running West Coast stuff and we were running West Coast stuff. So there was a lot of carryover concept wise. And I just thought he played really good and just super efficient. And he was a fun dude to watch. Coach Say, I appreciate it. No, I never got any responses from anybody, but I appreciate the fact. One of my favorite things, I have a lot of favorite things about those April 1st videos. One of my favorites, the gift that keeps on giving, is the people that just come to it late, like it must just like pop up on their feed for whatever reason, and they get confused because it's not April Fools, and that is the gift that keeps on giving. There's a couple that I've had out there that people still get to, and they're like, "This is a terrible video. You're totally wrong," and inevitably someone will tell them in the comments, like 5 comments later, that not everything on there is totally accurate. Backyard Brews, appreciate you for sure. All right, we'll go for a little bit longer here. Darren, during the offseason, how often are quarterbacks throwing typically? Oh, so this is a very, I would say, individual question. I think some guys throw a lot. Some guys, I would say, do a few times a week. Some guys, probably older guys in the league, probably do less than you probably think. Some guys probably don't throw at all. I probably was in the middle of that group. I used to like to throw. I used to like to build up as the offseason went along, maybe starting like twice a week, getting into probably as you get closer to camp, 4 times a week, maybe max. Intermixed there would be like footwork centric days. So like going out and doing drops, and the footwork type of it was probably more important to me than necessarily throwing. And the other thing I know I've said on this channel before, but it's a weird problem to have, is like a 30-year-old professional athlete, depending on where you live, there aren't a whole lot of your peers that are available, at 12 o'clock on a Tuesday to like go out to the field and throw. There just aren't. So unless you're like working out at a college where there's a lot of guys coming out every single year, it can be a challenge to find guys who can go out there and throw it. So you got to get a little creative on your off-season workouts. But if you live near a facility, anything like that, yeah. Coach, I do not coach high school ball anymore. Any film online? I have the entire film in one of my courses, the entire offense. I give it every single play that we ever coached or installed. So if you're interested in how we did it, that's the way to get it done. Coach Kip, have you found as the best way to install an offense in spring at the high school level? Yeah, again, that's the same course, bro. Sorry, I keep repeating myself. But yeah, I haven't. One of my courses is the offense that we ran at the high school. I love the offense. I'm a big believer in it. It's not free though. It's an extensive thing, and it's a real library. It has not only how we did it, but I give examples in there. I give the entire install videos over there. I did it very similar to this, and I think people, kind of always poo-poo it a little bit as far as, oh, we don't have this set up, we couldn't do it like you do it. Yeah, but you probably have a laptop, or you probably have a camera on your phone that you could do installations. And my installation, I think the original one I filmed my first year was on my phone. So it's certainly doable. But yeah, lots of different ways to do it. I think we ended up having like 6 or 7 different days of installations. So broke it down like 6-ish. Oh man. Shane Donahue, who was the best high school player you coached or coached against when you were coaching high school ball? Ooh, that's a good question. I would probably say, well, I played against a lot of really great players in like 7-on-7 because we would play all the really good teams. We were a lower division team, the one that I coached at, so we didn't necessarily play a lot of like 5 stars or any 5 stars. The guy that I would say was probably the best player. God, what was his last name? Jaden Virgin, I think. He was an edge player for Boise. I don't know if he's still at Boise. He went to Boise. It's probably the first guy that pops up. do a couple more in here, and then we'll bounce out of here. I certainly appreciate you guys hanging out. Nice little Tuesday. I can feel when I talk too much. Pipes start going. I got to finish a Patreon video. Oh, that's a good call. Patreon video probably tomorrow. Probably won't finish it by the end of today. Is Desmond Ritter's last start from last year. For some reason, I had a lot of people reach out to me and ask me about doing more Desmond Ridder. It must be because the Falcons announced that I guess he's going to be the guy moving forward, pending the outcome of this draft. So I went back and watched the last start. I think it's week 18 versus the Bucs. There's actually a lot to like. He moves around pretty well. He makes some nice plays out of structure. That run game is I like what they do. They're actually a team that I would argue maybe motions too much. But they did a pretty good job running the ball versus Tampa. I don't know what exactly Tampa was doing at the end, but they weren't playing great run defense, that's for sure. So if you're interested in Desmond Ridder, check out the Quarterback School Patreon community, and let's give a little bit more here as far as one or two more questions. My man Darren, here we go, last one. When you played baseball, did you pitch? Do you believe it translated over to quarterback game in any way? I did pitch when I was younger. I wouldn't even say I was a pitcher. I was more of a thrower. And I'm lucky that they didn't have pitch counts like they do nowadays, because I used to. It was either a strikeout or a walk, y'all. And we were going to get those pitches in. So nowadays they're way more vigilant on the pitch count. And I think it's obviously good for the game. But I do think it probably translated to playing quarterback. I think kids probably, if we're going to talk baseball wise and maybe even quarterback wise here, I think kids play too much, like especially in the pitching world and maybe the quarterback world too. There's too much structured throwing, like in practice or 7-on-7 practice or travel ball practice or bullpen with your coach or bullpen with your one-on-one pitching instructor, as opposed to throwing, like going out and playing butts up or going out and playing pickle or going out and having a catch. That's probably what I did a lot growing up, just because that was what we did where I grew up. You just go play and you throw, and it wasn't a lot of structured playing. Now, that might have hurt me in the end pitching wise, but I think it helped me throwing wise, just being comfortable with different angles and changing motions and just playing, I think helped. So hope that helps. All right, y'all. Oh man, one more. Sam H for the win. Kyle Trask or Baker, who wins the quarterback comp? Is it really a competition? I can't imagine it is, but maybe. I would love to see Kyle Trask. I don't know necessarily, I don't know what anyone thinks that Baker is going to come in and be anything different than he has been up until this point. But, I've been wrong many times before. But I'd like to see Kyle Trask get a chance to play. I'm sure he'll get a chance to play eventually. But Baker probably wins that thing coming out of camp. All right, y'all. I'm out. Appreciate it. Have a good one. See you on the other side.